What happened when an undercover CEO traded his penthouse for a mop and exposed the hidden truth behind a toxic workplace? Welcome, wise and compassionate listeners. Your heart for fairness, justice, and real leadership is exactly what the world needs more of. Today's story isn't just about corporate scandals. It's about quiet heroes, long overdue reckonings, and the power of integrity when no one is watching. Stay with us, because what unfolds next will not only restore your faith in doing what's right, it will remind you that true leadership always begins with humility. Logan Pierce stood before the cracked mirror of a cheap downtown motel, adjusting the second-hand flannel shirt over his broad shoulders. The reflection staring back at him bore little resemblance to the billionaire founder of Pierce Industries. Gone was the meticulously tailored suit, the gleaming watch, the sharp haircut that usually graced financial magazines. In their place was a simple, rugged man, scruffy beard, worn-out jeans, and a thrift store backpack slung over one shoulder. It wasn't just a costume. It was a reminder. Before the tech empire, before the boardrooms and billion-dollar acquisitions, Logan had started out hauling crates in a freezing warehouse at 17, working double shifts to help his mother pay the mortgage after his father left. Hardship had carved his work ethic deep into his bones. Success had never erased that. If anything, it had made him more determined never to forget where he came from. Now standing on the brink of a new mission, he needed to tap into that memory more than ever. 3 months earlier, Logan's company had acquired Vantage Tech, a once proud chain of high-end electronic stores, now plagued by poor customer reviews, soaring employee turnover, and shrinking profits. On paper, the stores looked profitable, but Logan trusted paper less than people. Something wasn't adding up. Corporate audits only scratched the surface. If he wanted the truth, he had to go straight to the ground floor, unnoticed, unfiltered. So he'd built a new identity. Logan Miles, a laid-off warehouse worker from Michigan, desperate for a fresh start. No fancy education, no connections, just a willingness to work. Monica, his longtime executive assistant and closest confidant, had voiced her concerns more than once. "You're not bulletproof," she warned as she handed him a fake ID and a battered old smartphone. "This isn't a boardroom negotiation. You're walking into the lion's den without a shield." Logan had just smiled. "Good," he said. "I want the lions to show their true teeth." He took one last look in the mirror, adjusted his cheap ball cap low over his forehead, and left the room without ceremony. Outside, the city buzzed with indifferent energy. Honking cars, flashing neon, the faint hum of life moving too fast to notice anyone on the margins. Logan fit right in. He moved down the sidewalk with measured purpose, blending into the sea of workers hustling to survive another day. Ahead, the gleaming facade of Vantage Tech's flagship store came into view, all glass and steel and modern bravado. It looked impressive, but Logan knew all too well sometimes the prettier the building, the darker the cracks inside. Today he wasn't a CEO, he was just another man trying to earn a paycheck. And that's exactly how he intended to find the truth. Logan stepped through the gleaming glass doors of Vantage Tech, greeted by the sterile scent of polished floors and the quiet hum of sleek technology displays. The store was immaculate, but the tension in the air was harder to ignore. Employees moved with the kind of rigid efficiency that came less from pride and more from fear. A smiling woman in a Vantage Tech polo shirt approached him, her badge identifying her as Eva Ramirez, Senior Customer Care Associate. Her warmth seemed genuine, a rare flicker of kindness in an otherwise cold environment. "You must be Logan, our new warehouse support," she said, extending her hand. Logan gave a modest nod, mumbling, "Logan Miles, thanks for having me." Before she could offer much more than a reassuring smile, the atmosphere shifted. A sharp click of expensive leather shoes announced the arrival of Chase Dalton, the regional operations manager. His tailored navy suit, gleaming cufflinks, and slicked-back hair screamed corporate ambition. Chase carried himself with a swagger that demanded attention, a man convinced he owned every room he entered. His gaze swept the sales floor before landing on Logan and lingering. A slow, mocking smirk spread across Chase's face. "And who?" Chase drawled loudly enough for half the store to hear. Let the homeless guy in? A few nervous chuckles rippled through the staff, though most employees kept their eyes glued to the floor. Logan, shoulders slightly hunched as part of his disguise, shifted awkwardly but said nothing. Warehouse, huh? Chase circled him like a shark. Well, you certainly looked the part. Nice touch with the scuffed boots, very authentic. He turned to Eva, his tone dripping with false cheer. Remind me to file a complaint with HR about lowering our visual standards. Eva opened her mouth to protest, but Chase cut her off with a flick of his wrist. Save it. I'm just giving the new guy some valuable feedback. Appearance matters here. First impressions matter, even if you're just moving boxes. He jabbed a manicured finger at Logan's chest. You want to stick around, Miles? Lose the charity shop wardrobe, or at least shower more than once a week. Another forced ripple of laughter passed among the staff. Logan nodded meekly, forcing his pride down like a stone. Every instinct screamed at him to correct the arrogant fool standing in front of him. But he stayed silent, cataloging every insult, every sneer. This wasn't about bruised feelings. This was about exposing rot. Chase clapped him on the back with a little too much force. Welcome to Vantage Tech, newbie. Hope you survive your first week. With a final smirk, he strutted away, leaving Logan standing under the sterile fluorescent lights, the weight of humiliation heavy on his shoulders, and a slow, burning determination settling deep in his chest. This was exactly why he had come, and it was only the beginning. The warehouse behind Vantage Tech's gleaming storefront told a very different story. There were no polished surfaces here, only concrete floors stained with old coffee spills, and the sharp tang of cardboard dust hanging in the air. Logan spent his first few days hauling heavy boxes, sorting shipments, and sweeping up debris, all without thanks or acknowledgement. The work was grueling, the kind that wore down a man's body slowly and without mercy. And yet, the physical strain didn't bother him nearly as much as the atmosphere did. He quickly noticed that casual conversation among the workers was almost non-existent. Jokes were whispered, not shared. Smiles were cautious, like candles fighting against the wind. At breaks, Logan sat with the others in the cramped, windowless break room, a space that smelled perpetually of burnt coffee and microwaved leftovers. That's where he first heard the real stories, whispered confessions about overtime hours never logged, bonuses promised and mysteriously withheld, sudden demotions after minor disagreements with management. None of it was said loudly, but the bitterness was impossible to miss. Everyone had a story, and they all ended the same way, with silence, exhaustion, and resignation. Eva remained a quiet but steady presence, slipping Logan tips on how to avoid Chase's worst moods and how to survive the arbitrary rules that seemed to change daily. She didn't complain about her own struggles, but Logan could see it in her eyes, the weariness of someone who had carried too many burdens for too long. When he asked why people didn't band together and confront the injustice, Eva simply shook her head. People tried, she said, voice low. Didn't end well. Chase makes sure the ones who speak up disappear. Logan took it all in. The overworked staff, the falsified inventory logs, the growing tension that buzzed just beneath the surface. It wasn't just mismanagement. It was exploitation, carefully disguised beneath corporate branding and hollow slogans about teamwork and innovation. The gleaming gadgets on the showroom floor were just a distraction from the rot growing at the core. Each night, after back-breaking shifts, Logan returned to his motel room and meticulously updated a secret digital journal. Discrepancies he observed, conversations he overheard, photographs discreetly snapped with his battered phone. His body ached in ways he hadn't felt in decades, but he welcomed the pain. It reminded him why he was here. These weren't just employees, they were people trapped in a system designed to squeeze them dry until they broke, or quit, or faded into invisible statistics no one cared about. Logan swore to himself as he turned off the lights each night. He wouldn't leave them that way. It wasn't until the end of Logan's first week that he began to understand the quiet strength behind Eva Ramirez's easy smile. They were restocking a row of refurbished tablets late one evening when she let her guard slip. Just a little. It started when Logan, carefully prying off outdated promotional stickers, asked, "You've been here a while, right?" Eva nodded, taping up a battered box without looking at him. 7 years, she said. Long enough to know which battles you can fight and which ones you survive by staying quiet. The words carried a weight far heavier than the boxes they were moving. Sensing her hesitation, Logan didn't press. Instead, he simply kept working, side by side, until the silence became a sort of permission. Finally, Eva sighed, leaning against the shelving unit. "I was up for a management position last year," she said quietly. "Had the best performance reviews, the highest customer satisfaction scores in the district. Everyone said the promotion was mine." She paused, her hands tightening around the packing tape. Then Chase arrived. New management, new rules. Suddenly, my team player score wasn't high enough. I didn't smile enough during floor inspections. I asked too many questions about the new scheduling cuts. She shook her head, a hollow laugh escaping her. Next thing I knew, the position went to someone with half my experience, someone who didn't ask questions. Logan felt a slow burn start behind his ribs, but he kept his voice neutral. "I'm sorry," he said simply. Eva shrugged, masking the old wound. "It's just how it is here. Keep your head down, do your job, pretend you don't see what's happening." For a moment, she looked at him more closely, as if measuring whether he could be trusted. "You seem different, Logan," she said. "Most new hires either suck up to Chase or quit after a month, but you watch, you listen." Logan gave her a small, almost shy smile, careful to maintain his cover. "Just trying to keep my job," he said. Inside, though, her words cemented his resolve. Eva wasn't bitter or weak. She was brave. She had stayed, not because she was blind, but because she refused to abandon the people around her. As they finished stacking the last of the boxes, Logan tucked her story away in his mind. Another piece of the puzzle, another reason he couldn't fail. Whatever it took, whatever risks he had to take, Logan Pierce was going to make this right. Not just for the numbers, for Eva, and for every quiet fighter like her. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday afternoon as the store buzzed with a steady stream of customers chasing new phone releases. Logan was restocking speakers near the front when he heard Chase's voice cut through the noise like a whip. "Briggs!" he barked across the floor, his tone sharp enough to make shoppers glance up. Tyler Briggs, a young sales associate, barely in his 20s, froze mid-conversation with a customer, his face drained of color as Chase stalked toward him, waving a printed sales report in the air like a weapon. "This is pathetic," Chase roared, jabbing a finger at the paper. 2 extended warranties sold this week? 2? You're costing this store money, kid." He snatched the tablet Tyler was holding and slammed it down on the nearest display, drawing gasps from nearby shoppers. Tyler stammered an apology, but Chase wasn't interested. "If you can't upsell properly, maybe you belong back at the mall kiosk hawking discount phone cases," he sneered. "You've got until the end of the week to turn it around, or don't bother clocking in again." The store fell into a stunned silence, broken only by the tinny sound of pop music playing overhead. Tyler's hands shook as he picked up the tablet, his knuckles white. Logan clenched his jaw, fighting the instinct to intervene. His role, for now, was to observe. But inside, a storm was brewing. Later, in the stockroom, Logan found Tyler hunched over a crate, pretending to check inventory. Up close, it was obvious the kid was barely holding it together. "Rough day," Logan said softly. Tyler gave a hollow laugh. "Just another Thursday at Vantage Tech," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. After a pause, he added, "I'm trying, you know. I'm doing everything I can." Slowly, the truth came out. Tyler worked 2 jobs, here and delivering food at night, just to cover rent and send money to his mom, who was recovering from surgery. The quotas Chase demanded were impossible without manipulating customers into buying things they didn't need, something Tyler refused to do. "I'm not going to scam people just to hit some number on a spreadsheet," he said, voice tight with anger and despair. Logan listened, each word hammering the injustice deeper into his bones. Tyler wasn't lazy or incompetent. He was principled, and he was being crushed under a system designed to punish anyone who chose ethics over exploitation. That night, as the rain drummed against his motel window, Logan added Tyler's story to his growing dossier. But this time, he didn't just file it under evidence. He filed it under promises. A promise that this would end, and when it did, Chase Dalton wouldn't see it coming. From that night on, Logan's mission shifted into high gear. The warehouse had become his silent battlefield, and every break, every late-night shift was an opportunity to dig deeper. While Chase and his cronies polished sales pitches up front, Logan combed through backroom inventory logs, customer return files, and payroll reports tucked into unlocked filing cabinets. The discrepancies piled up fast, missing shipments marked as received complete, sales logged under the wrong employee IDs, bonuses mysteriously slashed by administrative error. It wasn't sloppy management, it was systematic theft. Using a secure burner phone Monica had provided him, Logan photographed everything: altered spreadsheets, time cards that didn't match clock-out reports, handwritten memos directing supervisors to encourage off-the-clock work to control overtime. Every shred of evidence told the same story. Chase Dalton wasn't just cutting corners. He was engineering an entire false narrative to make himself look like a corporate hero while squeezing every ounce of labor from a terrified staff. At night, Logan uploaded the encrypted files to a secure drive shared only with Monica and the corporate compliance team. Their late-night messages grew increasingly grim. "Multiple violations confirmed," Monica texted after one upload, requesting outside auditors immediately. "Stay undercover." Logan gritted his teeth and stayed the course. Every fake warranty sale Chase demanded, every cost-saving measure that shifted more burden onto exhausted workers, fueled Logan's determination. Even Eva wasn't immune. One evening, Logan caught her quietly confronting a supervisor about missing hours on her paycheck, only to be brushed off with a thinly veiled threat about her attitude affecting team morale. Logan recorded the exchange through the cracked locker door, adding it to his growing case file. By the end of the second week, Logan had built a detailed map of the corruption network Chase had spun. It wasn't just localized mismanagement. It was a culture of fear built to protect the few at the expense of the many. Chase's success was a castle built on sand, and it was only a matter of time before the foundation crumbled. Still, Logan knew he had to be patient. One wrong move could expose him too early and allow Chase to cover his tracks. So he kept moving boxes, kept scrubbing bathroom floors, kept being the invisible man. But behind those tired eyes and dust-streaked clothes, a storm was brewing, and Chase Dalton's reckoning was no longer a question of if, it was only a question of when. The setup for the fall came faster than Logan anticipated. Mid-week, Chase gathered the staff for an impromptu announcement, practically vibrating with smug energy. "Big news, people," he declared, flashing a smile full of polished veneers. "District leadership is visiting Friday for a performance review, and rumor has it there's a promotion in the works. For yours truly," he winked, eliciting a few weak claps from exhausted employees who knew better than to stay silent. Logan kept his head down, his expression carefully blank, but inside he felt a flicker of grim satisfaction. Chase was already measuring the size of the throne he thought he was about to inherit, and had no idea it was about to collapse under him. The next 2 days were a flurry of forced productivity. Chase barked orders like a general before inspection. Perfect displays, spotless floors, no unsightly employee loitering. Staff were ordered to skip breaks, clock out early, and volunteer for unpaid prep shifts to make the store shine. Anyone who grumbled was met with a thinly veiled threat about their future advantage tech. Monica was feeling particularly bothered by his performance. For weeks, she'd been looking forward to every afternoon where everyone's depression could be inflicted on Monica and the incoming audit team. Chase's arrogance reached new heights. He bragged loudly near the break room that his creative accounting would make Vantage Tech's quarterly numbers look bulletproof. "They're going to eat out of my hand," he boasted to a supervisor. "You think they care how I hit the numbers? As long as the reports sparkle, I could run this place with 3 guys and a mop." That was the last piece Logan needed. He reported the conversation that night, and Monica confirmed that the audit team and executive leadership would be on site Friday morning, pretending it was a routine review, but ready to launch a full compliance crackdown once Logan gave the signal. By Thursday night, Logan sat alone in the break room after closing, staring at the tired vending machine humming in the corner. He thought about Eva, Tyler, and all the others, people who had endured abuse, fear, and broken promises simply because they needed a paycheck. Tomorrow wasn't just about exposing one corrupt manager. It was about keeping a silent promise he'd made to them the day he first walked through those polished doors. Tomorrow, Chase Dalton would finally meet the man he had mocked, not the invisible warehouse grunt, but the real Logan Pierce. And nothing would ever be the same again. Friday morning arrived crisp and electric, the air inside Vantage Tech buzzing with nervous energy. Staff lined the sales floor in stiff uniforms, displays gleamed, and Chase Dalton strutted between departments like a king surveying his court. He smoothed his designer tie, checked his Rolex for the third time, and flashed his rehearsed smile as a cluster of executives entered the store. Logan, in his battered work shirt and faded jeans, kept his distance, pushing a mop across the gleaming floor, just another invisible face in the crowd. Exactly what Chase still believed him to be. The meeting convened at the center of the store, chairs hastily arranged near the gaming section. District heads, compliance auditors, and even a few regional directors took their seats. Chase stood proudly before them, presentation remote in hand, a massive slide behind him reading, Q3 Excellence, Vantage Tech Flagship Success Story. He launched into his speech with practiced ease, showcasing glossy charts about record profits and streamlined staffing efficiencies. Every word was a lie, polished to gleam like gold. When Chase spoke about employee satisfaction being at an all-time high, Logan caught Eva glancing sideways at him, her lips pressed into a tight line. And, of course, Chase said, his voice practically oozing smugness, this success is built on a commitment to high hiring standards. Even our entry-level employees must project the right image for our premium brand. His eyes gleamed as they landed on Logan. Case in point, Chase turned to the executives, pointing dramatically. Miles, stand up. Logan straightened slowly, the mop still in his hand. The executives' gazes shifted toward him, some curious, some awkward. This, Chase continued, is why we must be careful. Presentation matters. A few strained chuckles echoed in the tense silence. Logan paused, letting the discomfort settle. Then, with deliberate calm, he placed the mop aside, reached up and pulled off the battered ball cap hiding his neatly styled hair, straightened his shoulders, smoothed his shirt, and when he spoke, it wasn't with the shy mutter of Logan Miles. It was with the quiet authority of a man who owned the ground he stood on. My name, he said, his voice carrying through the stunned crowd, is Logan Pierce, CEO of Pierce Industries, owner of Vantage Tech. Silence detonated across the floor. Chase's confident smirk collapsed into wide-eyed horror. He stumbled backward, color draining from his face as the auditors stood up, each holding thick folders labeled Compliance Investigation. Logan stepped forward, his tone razor-sharp. And today, he said, locking eyes with Chase, we'll be discussing how you achieved your so-called success. The staff, frozen in disbelief, watched as the predator became the prey, and Chase Dalton realized too late that the man he had ridiculed for weeks now held his entire future in the palm of his hand. The aftermath was swift, brutal, and public, just as it needed to be. As Chase Dalton stammered incoherent protests, Logan calmly handed each executive a thick folder of evidence. Inside were photographs of falsified payroll records, manipulated sales reports, doctored employee evaluations, and transcripts of Chase's own recorded boasts about cooking the books and bleeding the staff dry. The auditors wasted no time. One by one, they confirmed the evidence, their faces growing graver with each page they turned. Mr. Dalton, the lead auditor said crisply, your employment with Vantage Tech is terminated immediately. Please surrender your ID, company keys, and any corporate property. Chase turned to Logan, face contorted with disbelief and rage. You set me up, he hissed under his breath. Logan met his glare with the same steady calm he'd worn since the moment he revealed his identity. You set yourself up, he said evenly. You judged worth by appearance and loyalty by silence. You mistook fear for respect. Now you're going to answer for it." Security personnel, already briefed and waiting, approached. Chase made a feeble protest but knew it was pointless. With trembling hands, he stripped off his lanyard, dropped it onto the floor, and was escorted from the store, his carefully polished image shattered beyond repair. Once Chase disappeared through the glass doors, Logan turned back to the assembled employees, many still standing in stunned silence. His voice, when he spoke, was clear and resolute. "Effective immediately," Logan announced, "Eva Ramirez will assume the position of store manager. Her leadership, integrity, and dedication to both her colleagues and customers represent exactly what Vantage Tech stands for." A ripple of applause started, tentative at first, but quickly swelling as employees clapped not just for Eva, but for something bigger, the end of fear, the beginning of real change. Tears welled in Eva's eyes as she accepted a firm handshake from Logan, her hands shaking not from fear now, but from disbelief and gratitude. Logan wasn't finished. "Additionally," he continued, "all bonuses that were withheld under the previous management will be paid retroactively. Base wages for all hourly staff are increasing by 20%, effective next pay period. And starting today, we are implementing a zero-tolerance policy for workplace intimidation, wage theft, and retaliation." He let the words settle, watching tired faces slowly light up with cautious hope. "Private Advantage Tech," Logan said, his voice firm, "character matters more than appearances. Effort will be recognized, integrity will be rewarded, and no one," he added, sweeping the room with his gaze, "will ever again be made to feel invisible here." The applause this time came freely. And this time, Logan let himself feel it, not as a CEO craving validation, but as a man proud to keep a promise made in silence, beneath the hum of a warehouse he would never forget. Later that afternoon, Logan stood on the second-floor mezzanine, watching the store floor buzz with a new kind of energy. Employees moved with confidence, laughter echoed between aisles, and customers lingered longer, greeted not by forced smiles, but by genuine enthusiasm. Beside him stood Eva Ramirez, now officially store manager, her freshly printed badge catching the afternoon light. She still looked a little stunned, as if afraid she might wake up and find it had all been a dream. "Still feel like you're dreaming?" Logan asked, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Eva laughed softly. "Honestly, yes, but for the first time in a long time, it's a good dream." Logan nodded, his gaze sweeping over the bustling floor. "You earned every bit of it," he said simply. "The company needs leaders like you, people who don't forget where they came from." As they stood together, Logan felt a quiet satisfaction settle in his chest. This wasn't just about cleaning up a store. It was about restoring dignity to people who deserved better. And as the sunlight poured through the towering glass facade of Vantage Tech, Logan knew the real turnaround had only just begun. The story of Logan Pierce's undercover journey at Vantage Tech teaches a timeless lesson. True leadership is not measured by appearances, titles, or flashy numbers. It's defined by integrity, empathy, and courage. Logan's willingness to step away from power and into the struggles of his employees revealed a culture of fear masked by false success. It was only by listening, observing, and valuing the people others ignored that he could uncover the truth. For many of us, especially those who have weathered decades of change in the workforce, the story strikes a deep chord. It reminds us that character will always outlast image, and that companies, like communities, thrive when they value their people, not just their profits. Eva's rise from overlooked associate to respected leader shows that quiet resilience and loyalty matter far more than flashy ambition. Meanwhile, Chase's downfall proves that arrogance, cruelty, and exploitation eventually destroy even the most polished facades. In the end, the greatest transformations don't come from policies or slogans, but from leaders willing to stand beside their people, not above them. Justice, dignity, and hope are not just ideals, they are responsibilities.